I'm Desiree Dibasen Nanuses. I am a curator. I function as an academic as well as a researcher, and I am a Namibian Kwekwekwap tribe, and I currently reside in Namibia in a small coastal town called Henties Bay. Aspects of cultural heritage restitution that most resonate with me have to do with connecting the intangible knowledge to the heritage object. This particular excites me because I always think Africans have always created with purpose and intent. It's never just been in isolation or it's art for art's sake. There's always it functions as a design element, for example, or it functions as something that, solves a critical challenge at the time of where they were and what was created then. And I think it resonates with me most because I think it brings forth the genius of who our people are as Africans and what they were able to create. And I mean, I can use an example and probably just say something like, I love having the conversation with my daughter about the objects because for her, she would look at it and not be able to relate to it. But the moment I say something like, this is a headdress, and this headdress in contemporary terms, layman's terms, is a pillow. So you can choose to sleep on a headdress or a pillow because it's still in contemporary use till this day. It's not an outdated ethnographic object, right? And the other aspect that is most important for me is making sure that this information of this cultural heritage object is positioned in platforms, accessibility of on digital platforms, for example, where the now generation can have access to this, can learn from it. I mean, a colleague and I were once having a conversation about leatherworks, and she did this research on leatherworks, which for me felt like there's so much that she can position now as in how to care for your leather handbag. It's become such a contemporary, it's a very popular culture now of wearing the leather shoes, the leather handbag, the little leather purse, the leather laptop bag. So how she can make sure that people access these, like 30-second reels and 60-second, information sharing of how to preserve and how to conserve your leather on social media platforms, for example. So those really are aspects of cultural heritage that excite me. James Baldwin once said, history is not in the past, it is the present. We carry our history with us. We are our history. So let me tell you a little story. I am not a fashion designer, right? But I remember this in my second year at the University of Namibia. I'm completely in love with the patchwork dress, the patchwork quilting, like the patchwork anything. But in this class, we had to design a textile, and I decided to create a patchwork textile. And I didn't use the afal, the offcuts, as it was previously known. But I chose to use really like rich colors, rich textures, materials, and create my textile from that. And I think since that time, it's kind of always remained with me where I've used this textile and this patching, this weaving together of knowledge as a conceptual approach to how I approach any object. So I would look at the object, which is the tangible object, and look at the intangible aspects of why this object was created. And the intangible aspects actually are the ones that give this object its value, that give this object its relevance, its space, its positioning, its validity of why it was created and why it needs to have this room, this space to exist. And also it just draws on the genius of the indigenous knowledge systems that prevailed at the time, because there's so much ecology that goes into the art of creating for African works. And for me, I mean, I said I used my name. Desiree Dibasen became such a key aspect of in my practice, because my practice is an auto-ethnographic practice, which looks at what my heritage is, where it comes from, and what are the things I wish to change and effect change and have impact on within the industry. And the Dibasen means do it for yourself. And the fact that I've gone into an entire research process, my entire career has been about how we are viewed as a people of the Kwekwe tribe, also about how we are seen and the narratives that follow, and breaking those existing narratives and diminishing them, like breaking down those walls that keep you out because of where you come from or what they say you are, without them having even known who you really are. And when I had my little one, it just became the most imperative thing that she should be proud of the legacy that her mother has left behind for her, not only for the sake of, no, this is what your mom was able to achieve throughout her life, but because of she can be having a heritage that she can be proud of, and bringing this pride to our objects, to our textiles, to our, like the cultural, the traditional aspects of our lives, and why they're important, and how cooking with your mom isn't just preparing a meal. It's a life lesson. It's where you are taught how to be a woman. It's where you are taught the intricacies, the principles, the values that are instilled in us as young girls, and we grow up with these, hodorotorosen, which means, like, a woman keeps herself together. She's not all loud and wild and out there. And it's those small things, those nuances, that you are taught in those private moments with, when you are a mother daughter, or a father son moment, when he's taught, like, how to hunt, for example. And hunting, I mean, like, I use an example. Like, I love the fact that the hunting, when I was researching the bow and arrow, the existing prevalent narratives around it is very much about hunting, and hunting for food and survival. And I came across another one, which I didn't know before, which was that there's a small hunting bow and arrow that is used in courtship. So it's tiny, it bounces off the lady's back. So the dude would, like, hit her with this on her bum, and if she picks it up and places it on her heart, it's like her saying it's okay to this proposal. If not, and she walks off, that's what it is. And I love these stories that go with the intangible knowledge that we add then to these objects, because that's when they come alive. And in those teachings, you must have respect for when the person says no, right? And you must leave it at that. And how there must be an action, in showing that this is the love, for example. I just love that. And the fact that I know that, and I can teach my daughter that, and this is this generational knowledge that you want to leave behind. I mean, why do I document? Why do I write about our objects, for example? Is so that there is, I mean, we come from an oral history tradition, but now, as academics in the area, we have a platform where we can actually document this knowledge, and this knowledge can be used, and our kids can be proud of their heritage, and not be so westernized and absorbed in this Western culture, but that they can take identity of who they are and be proud of their heritage, of who they are. And that is exactly why I do what I do. Hashtag my name Dibasen. So, in concluding, I just want to say, as much as what I'm interested about, and I'm completely fascinated about, may not resonate with, everybody. A final anecdote, that, if I could call it that completely makes sense to me and that I take to heart, is the front row at a funeral shifts perspective. Anytime you go to a funeral, you can be sitting in the back, you could be visiting, you don't have to drop a tear, because it doesn't impact you until you are in the front row. And that's where I found myself. And that's where I had to shift the perspective that was on me and about me. So when one thinks of, like African anecdotes or proverbs, another one that comes to mind is obviously Chinua Achebe, who said, if you don't like somebody else's story, write your own. And I think that has been my autoethnographic practice in a nutshell. Miss Adichie, also Adichie Chimamanda. She's also one of my favorite writers, and one of the things that excites me about what she said about the danger of a single story is, like, for example, when I speak about the bow and arrow, for example, if you just have that one narrative that's like pushed the whole time, and that's the only thing that people think of you, then they think all you can do is, there's just survival mode is all that's in you, and they don't think that there can be aspects of you that pertain to things like romanticism, like how body adornment, how the jewelry was made, for example, what skills go into that. And I think it's that excellent craftsmanship that gets lost in the process, because we are seen only as this one thing and not as the many facets of everything that we are, and it's not encapsulated in when the stories are told about us. And it's exactly where I want to debunk these myths, debunk these stories, and be the one that like positions my story and the story that my daughter gets to grow up with, and craft that narrative for them. So that's been my practice, and why I am at the forefront of doing what I do, and why I've chosen to be a pioneer in this area, and to trailblaze as I go moving forward, and to take others with me on this journey.